Hello, BookTube. My name is Adobe Angel, and today we are going to be doing a summary of Crown of Feathers by Nikki Pau Preto. It's a young adult epic fantasy about Phoenix Riders, and it is recommended for those with a reading level of grade 7 or higher. So chapter 1 is from the view of Veronica. So the book starts by introducing Veronica, a 16-year-old girl with brown skin, dark brown eyes, and black hair. She's very kind and she believes in animal equality. It starts by her digging through the garbage with an owl friend, and the owl friend is using its magic to help guide her vision. And she has a sister named Val, who is 17 and is described to have striking red hair with unique braids that contain accessories like shells. And her personality is the complete opposite of Veronica's. She is very mean, and she's willing to harm others in order to get what she wants. Right now, the girls are at a very low point in both of their lives. They don't have a permanent home, and they're staying in an abandoned cabin in the woods. And they have special powers that cause them to be what's called animages. Being an animage means you have the magical ability to communicate and understand animals. Val believes that animals are tools to be used, while Veronica feels more of a kinship instead of a superiority over them. Veronica's ultimate dream is to be a Phoenix Rider. 16 years ago, a Valkyra and her sister Feronia were pitted against each other during a blood war, which is what caused the end of the common practice of Phoenix riding. Animage magic also became outlawed, and anybody caught using it would be taken and put into bondage, which is why Veronica and Val have to live in secrecy. On top of animal magic, there's also shadow magic, and those are the ones who are able to manipulate the minds of humans. Back in the day, the Phoenix Riders were the guardians of the land, and there are two things required in order to become a Phoenix Aerie. You have to be an animage, and you have to own a phoenix. The sisters luckily were able to find 2 phoenix eggs, and phoenix eggs have kind of an appearance of stone. Many catches that have been hiding the phoenix eggs were destroyed during the war by the Empire. While the sisters were cooking their dinner in some broth, one of the phoenix eggs started making scratching noises from the inside. Chapter 2 is also Veronica's. The chapter starts with the egg hatching and a little golden beak poking through. The egg has finally hatched, so after all this time, they have their baby phoenix. Veronica was the first thing that the baby phoenix saw when it stumbled out of its egg, and immediately she could feel the bond. Phoenixes choose their bond mates before they are born. Val, of course, stormed off, angry that the phoenix didn't bond with her instead. They were so used to having just 2 of them, but now there's a third. Their parents lost their lives in the war, and their grandma who raised them was beaten to death by an angry mob when Val was 11 and when Veronica was 10. Their grandma's final words were, "Take care of each other." During their sleep, Veronica has dreams of people's thoughts coming into her mind, which is a sign of shadow magic. It is for this reason she prefers to stay in the mountains over the cities, because that way she can't hear other people's minds. It's also explained that in order for a phoenix to be born, it either dies, turning its body to ash in order to be reborn, or to be an egg incubated in the ashes of its mother. In the wild, phoenix females have to die in order to give birth. And the second egg, it's not gonna hatch because the first egg phoenix took all of its energy. Val, she took an axe and she smashed the second egg with it, and the unborn baby bird inside was completely stoned. Veronica decides to name her baby phoenix Zephyro, which in their language means sweet flame. Chapter 3, we are introduced to a new character, Sev. Sev is also an animage, and he is a lone wolf. He's working with a group of soldiers and they're escorting llamas through the woods. And when he wasn't paying attention, he accidentally stepped in llama poop. He cannot have anybody knowing that he is an animage, or he will also be turned into a servant in bondage. His parents were Phoenix Riders. Sev always liked to make the other soldiers think that he was dumb, that way they wouldn't make him do too much. There were 2 other soldiers though, Jotham and Oat, and they were bad dudes. But as long as they didn't steal from commanding officers, they're tolerated. Sev grew up in overcrowded war orphanages, where he was able to hide his animagic and avoid bondage. Chapter 4 we're going back to Veronica. The chapter starts with Veronica and her baby phoenix in the garden harvesting onions. And now Zephyra, she's starting to grow and is now the size of a large eagle. And her magic and her bond with Veronica is only growing. But what's also growing is Val's jealousy. She insists that a phoenix is to be a servant, not a pet. And both of them would love to be able to meet phoenix riders, but they're not even sure if they exist anymore. Phoenixes are smart. They have an accelerated growth cycle and very rapid healing abilities. They are not solitary and they always live in groups, as well as mate for life, like many other birds. The chapter ends with a loud crash on the door from a raider. Chapter 5, we're back with Sev. Sev sees Veronica and he uses a knife on his belt. The other raiders were breaking windows on the other side of the cabin. Sev warns her that she needs to get away because while he will not hurt her, the others will. Both Veronica and Zephyra ran and took cover in the bushes. Soldiers were supposed to be a thing of the past in the country of Pyra, especially since there has been such a horrible economy since the Blood War. But he saw Veronica and how she had a phoenix. Maybe that's the reason the soldiers came back? The chapter ends with Val sneaking behind and putting a knife towards Sev's throat. Verona looks at Sev with murder in her eyes as she holds that knife to his throat. Veronica begs and pleads to her sister to not harm him because he just saved her life from those other soldiers. Val lets him go and warns him that next time she will not spare him. Their cabin was completely destroyed by the soldiers who trashed the place, looking for something to steal. Obviously, there was nothing because the girls are in some really severe poverty right now. But they realized that abandoned cabin they were squatting in, it's not safe anymore and they're gonna have to move on. Val says that she's gonna go to Vale so that way she can search for another phoenix egg. Veronica has never really been able to make friends because Val is extremely controlling and tries to play it off as being overprotective. They get into this huge argument where Val insists Veronica is raising her phoenix incorrectly. Val starts throwing little dates to Zephyra. The little fruits are a phoenix's favorite treat, and Zephyra starts to get bug-eyed and foaming at the beak and gagging because she poisoned the dates. Shortly after, Zephyra dies a horrifying poison death, and Veronica can feel that bond disappear. Chapter 7 is about Sev. Sev cannot stop thinking about the Phoenix Girl and her sister's knife to his throat. He needed to get away for a while, so he used his animagic to swarm a bunch of bats to swarm in on the soldiers and create a huge distraction. This is where we're introduced to an old lady and bondage servant, and she introduces herself as her name being Trix. And she says that she saw everything. She will make a deal with him. She will not snitch on him for using animagic, and her favor that she wants his help is to bring the Empire assassins down from the inside. Chapter 8, we're back to Veronica. Chapter starts with Veronica going limp over Zephyra's death. Val insists that it was for her own good, but Veronica says that she's never going to forgive her. Val tries to argue and says it's just some animal, but Veronica says her phoenix was her entire world. And Veronica's really starting to realize what a true heartless person Val really is. She starts getting memories of their grandma who raised them, how her grandma was a healer with a very high clientele. Veronica starts tearing up the house, breaking apart pieces of the woods, so that she can build a fire that will bring her bird back to life. She put Zephyra's body into the fire and stayed up all night burning it, trying to resurrect her, with no luck. As Veronica leaves, Val says, "I am the reason you have clothes on your back and food in your belly." So Veronica's like, alright, so she strips off all of her clothes down to her undergarments and throws her clothing at Val's face and says she would rather freeze to death than ever see her again. Veronica swears that she will find more eggs and phoenix riders without the help of her sister. Chapter 9 is about Tristan, a new character. So Tristan is about to jump off of a cliff onto the back of his phoenix, but he's having some very severe anxiety. When phoenix and riders are bonded, the phoenix's flames do not burn, but they kind of have like more of that pins and needles feeling. Tristan's dad is on the side, disappointed because there are two things that a phoenix rider cannot afford to have: fear and failure. Tristan has developed a flame phobia when he was very young. When he was a child, he accidentally knocked over a candle that was lit in his father's library. Luckily, there was a servant there that was able to run over and put out the fire quickly, so the only thing that got burnt was a small rug. But the thought of what if the servant wasn't there constantly terrifies him. The chapter ends with Tristan eventually stepping over to the side to allow another Phoenix rider through. And then he starts to think to himself, what if my fear isn't fire, but of me being a disappointment to my dad? Chapter 10, we're back to Veronica. For the very first time in her life, Veronica is completely alone. She is still very broken from the death of her bondmate. After walking for a while, she comes across Malka's outpost, and it's completely destroyed from the war. After taking a nap, she's woken up by this little girl with honey blonde hair holding an obsidian knife to her throat. But once the little girl realizes that she's not a threat, she introduces herself as Sparrow, and she has a little small bird friend named Chip. Sparrow is completely blind, and she uses animagic with Chip so that way she can see. Veronica wound up getting a little bit jealous because she's always wanted a pet, but Val insisted that only phoenixes are good enough for them. Then a couple of stewards walk by, so Sparrow and Veronica go ahead and hide so that way they can eavesdrop. For a blind girl, Sparrow is very good at navigating herself around. The girls follow the men to see if they're Phoenix riders. While they were eavesdropping, they were spotted and grabbed because they were suspected to be thieves. They, of course, had absolutely nothing on them. I mean, they were both very impoverished looking, so they just let them go. It's like, oh, they were only eavesdropping. They weren't trying to steal nothing. Veronica starts having really bad PTSD flashbacks of what happened to Zephyra. She really tries to cheer herself up by thinking about the short, happy times that she had with her. From watching her hatch from her egg, seeing her grow, seeing her have her first flight. Veronica asked the two men if there were any Phoenix Aries that they knew of. Suddenly, they acted like they didn't speak the language. Veronica thinks that nobody wants to tell her anything because she's a girl, so she makes the decision that she's going to start disguising herself as a boy. Chapter 11, we're back to Sev. Sev is regretting allowing Trix to blackmail him. It's hard enough being an animage, but being one amongst soldiers is a whole nother issue. Trix explains that she's been in bondage for about 6 years, and he feels terrible because nobody deserves that. Trix starts to really share her Phoenix-themed wisdom with him, and she uses phrases such as, secrets never die. One bursts into flames, and then another rises from the ashes to take its place. Chapter 12, we're back with Tristan. Tristan is having a blast riding on his Phoenix named Rex. He's really able to enjoy himself because, at the moment, Rex isn't on fire. Phoenix riders are not allowed to ride around during the day unless they're up really, really high to where nobody can spot them. Nighttime, they have a lot more freedom, though. Phoenixes, they have really good vision in the dark, but their riders tend to struggle. While flying, Tristan sees a young boy and he flies down so that way he could get a better look. Tristan wound up getting scolded by his troop for rising the alarm, all for spotting a malnourished little boy who was just walking by himself. Because secrecy is their greatest weapon, and he just ruined it. The boy says his name is Nick, and it's very obvious that it's just Veronica in her boy disguise. And they explain to Nick, boy Veronica, that they are their own secret group of riders and they're not part of any government organization. But before the commander could leave, Nick grabbed his arm and held the obsidian knife to him. He immediately had to explain. He's like, no, I wasn't trying to stab you. I was just wondering if this was enough for me to trade with you guys so that way I could join you. And all the riders just look in confusion. They're like, why does this scrawny, malnourished peasant boy have this high-end obsidian knife? Tristan gets fired from being leader of the group. Chapter 13, we're back to Veronica, or Nick. And the chapter starts with Nick being held prisoner. So Veronica, she wound up cutting her hair super short and flattening her chest so that way she could make herself look more like a boy. And as long as she doesn't let her voice get too high, she's able to pull it off pretty well. Some disturbing history, any animages that were caught by the Empire were forced to go on to hunting trips. So that way they could use their magic to lure out prey for hunting, or even to connect with livestock to keep them calm during the slaughtering process. And it's horrifying because when they're having that mental connection with the animals, they can feel everything that the animal is feeling. So if they're calming down a cow while it's being slaughtered with their animagic, they can feel the slaughtering on themselves that the cow is going through. While she's in prison, Veronica does everything she can to show that she has no weakness. because eventually she wants to be able to see as strong enough for Phoenix riding. And she felt super happy. Even though she was in prison, she was among Phoenix riders. The main captain comes in to interview Veronica to find out if they should sleep in the guest room or in the cell from now on. An older woman comes in named Mora. She's hobbling in with her crutch because she has a missing leg. At first, Veronica was glad to see another woman until she saw that she was a shadow mage. Chapter 14 is also Veronica's. Veronica can tell that Mora's shadow magic is not as strong as Val's, but she still maintains to stay as emotionless as possible, because shadow magic only sees active thoughts on the mind's surface. After going through her head, Mora's like, yeah, this one's safe. And then Mora starts introducing herself as the head of the kitchen. They keep asking where they got that obsidian knife, and Veronica just kept saying, oh, I found it. I found it. That's it. Even while Mora is entering her brain, she creates her own memories and visions of her finding the knife. With that, they're able to gain Veronica's trust. But they explain to her, they're like, phoenixes are very expensive and we can't really have a peasant be bonding with one right now. We can't afford to keep you around, I'm sorry. She insists and saying, she's like, no, I can pay my dues by doing chores. What's some chores that you guys may need done? I want to stay here. I want to help. They're like, all right, if you insist. So they get her to introduce to Jana at the stables to get her to do some work. Chapter 15, we're back on Sev. Sev is on animal duty. He really likes it. The other soldiers, they complain about it. They think that llamas are slow and stupid and smelly. The character Cade is introduced. And he even says, he's like, Sev, I know that you're an animage, and you need to choose now between being an animage and being a soldier. At that moment, Sev starts getting really bad PTSD flashbacks of when soldiers broke into his home and destroyed everything, and how they killed his phoenix riding mother with an arrow. And when Sev's dad was shouting at him to get back in the house for safety, while him and his mom try to fight off the soldiers. And after both of his parents were killed and everything was destroyed, he was unfortunately taken in as a war orphan. The chapter ends with Sev coming out of his PTSD episode. He doesn't hear the footsteps behind him. Chapter 16, we're back to Veronica. Chapter 16 starts with Veronica eating more food than she's ever had before. She realizes she's never experienced fullness before. And Veronica is given all the animal type of chores, from mucking the stables to feeding the cats. While Veronica is thinking about how badly she misses Zephyra, one of the stable boys is trying to put reins on the horse named Wind, only for Wind to buck and knock him over. Veronica steps in and she's able to get the horse to listen by using a carrot. Animages are expected to perform a bond with every animal that they know, and they also have to be able to control their horses with mind control, so that way both of their hands are free to use as weapons during battle. They also have to have the ability to calm horses so that they don't get spooked, especially by the igniting phoenixes. The chapter really breaks down on how animages use their magic to communicate with animals. They have to open a mental doorway and pass through in order to get to the mind. With regular animals, once mind control is over, that door closes right away. But when they have a bond mate, it stays open always. Every animage has been put to the test to be able to control every single one of the animals at once, and so far all of them have failed. Tristan was riding Wind and he was getting feisty and about to be bucked off. Before Tristan could get seriously injured, Veronica stepped in, and she used the previous connection that she had with Wind to calm him down and save Tristan from any serious injuries. And Tristan's dad, the head commander, was really pissed off. Like, why does this impoverished stable boy have more control over the animals than my own son? Alright, chapter 17, we're back with Sev. Chapter starts by Sev realizing that his dagger is missing. Cade and Sev decide to take one of the llamas for a walk with them. And when they got back, the commander got really pissed off that they separated the llama from its herd. They were trying to use an excuse like, the llama had a leg cramp and we were just walking it off. So the commander's like, alright, so he takes a knife and he slits the llama's throat because the llama is lame. Sev was currently having an animage connection with that llama, so he was able to feel the sensation of the throat slitting. Since it can't be figured out that he was an animage, he had to hide the fact that he was in pain to not be discovered. There are a lot of bigotry and false stereotypes about animages. Many believe that they're not truly human, they're part animal, and how they will weep for every rat or every roach that is killed. and how they try to make friends with lowly creatures. Commander says that if they're seen with the pack animals again, they will be greatly punished, and he sends them on hunting duty. And hunting duty, of course, is the worst job you can give an animate. They lure those unexpected animals to slaughter, only to mutually feel the pain. Chapter 18 is about Tristan. Tristan started punching holes in the wall out of anger, because everybody was making fun of him. He's also terrified that he may never overcome his fear of fire and that his dad is going to find out. And he's extra pissed because he's the one that brought in that stable boy that humiliated him. His mood is described to become hotter than Rex's fire dive every time he sees Nick. Especially like Nick does not know how to do anything. He doesn't know how to ride horses, doesn't know how to hunt with hounds, doesn't know how to use the messenger pigeons, doesn't even have any experience with how to shoot a bow. Tristan feels like him being sent to tutor him is a humiliation ritual. And he even snaps at Nick and gets all pissed off because he was calling him sir. He's like, no, do not call me sir. Call me apprentice. Tristan isn't able to control all three animals at the same time, and when Nick comes in and tries to help him out, Tristan just snaps at him again. Nick tries to explain. He's like, if you want to control your dog, instead of draining all of your energy trying to force him to do something, you need to tell him what you expect and be a gentle guide. Tristan gets angry again. He's like, this is how we were taught how to do it for generations. Because animals are to be obedient, not friends. Nick explains to him, he's like, if you would just start calling the animals by their names and treating them like they were friends, they're gonna have a lot more respect for you. Chapter 19, we're back with Veronica. The chapter starts with Veronica very angrily doing her work in the kitchen. She's still pissed off about her back and forth with Tristan. Mora explains to her that Tristan's actually a very kind person, and he's really sweet, just like his mother. His mother's name was Olana, and she was deemed too dangerous to be alive. She was executed and her phoenix beheaded, and with Olana executed, it put all of the people in submission, because they realized if she can be killed, so can anybody. Also, during battles, there is a lot of resurrections because of all the bones that are around. Veronica starts to think of her hero, Valkyra, who at the age of 11 was the youngest rider in history to win both flying and archery competitions, and even leading her patrols at the age of 12. Her grandma told the stories of Valkyra all the time while she was little. Veronica used to think of herself as a phoenix rider who would be raining down arrows in a battlefield. But later, she realizes that she wishes to protect people. Tristan comes in later to apologize to Nick. And it catches her off guard because she's never received an apology before living with Val. He even says, he's like, you know what? Go ahead and just call me Tristan instead of apprentice. And he's even like, you know what? Can you help me with these animals? You seem to really know what you're doing. Tristan swallowed his pride and admitted that Nick was right this whole time about how befriending the animals actually gives you better control. Tristan says that one day he's going to be replacing his dad as leader. And when he does, he will allow everybody, including young girls, to become phoenix riders. Girls stopped being phoenix riders because phoenixes were extremely expensive and they only insisted that the strongest were to have one. The chapter ends with Tristan talking about how he wants to prove his dad wrong about girls being riders. Chapter 20, we're back with Sev. So for his punishment for the whole llama situation, they put Sev on latrine duty, where he has to go and dig the holes for the soldiers to poop in. And Trix is really pissed off about his screw up, but luckily Kate is there and starts to stick up for him. Trix starts to open up and tell Sev that she knew his parents personally. Their names were Alice and Sereno. Her job was to keep personal tabs on all of Valkyra's loyal followers. Sev really starts breaking down, feeling like he was guilty for his parents' death. Trix had to explain to them that they are heroes, and that he is alive because of how great they are. Trix says she doesn't need help from Sev anymore, because the llama incident set them back too far for him to be of any help. And then she drops her plan that she had to poison the soldiers. Sev says he's gonna back out of that plan, but Trix insists in going through with it. Chapter 20, we're back to Veronica, or Nick. Nick and Tristan practice constantly over the next few days, and they realize when they're together, they really make a lot of progress. And Tristan even really starts to trust Nick and opens up about his fears and his past and what caused his phobia of fire. Nick taps on Tristan's head and says, "Your fear is in here." And Nick starts to feel a little bit intimate towards him because he's hot. And Veronica starts checking Tristan out, realizing, hey, you know what? This guy's actually kind of hot. Tristan helps her with her phoenix writing skills, such as combat and archery. It is the most fun she has had in a very long time. Later, Veronica is very grateful that nobody is in the bathhouse so that way she can bathe in private. She has been able to keep her female identity secret from everybody, even stealing linen rags for the time of the month. This is when Tristan walks into the bathhouse and starts talking to Nick about how he's willing to sponsor him for phoenix writing. Immediately as he comes in, she has to cover up super quickly so she's not found out to be a girl the whole time. And I like the quote from the book saying, he was offering her dream on a silver platter and then apologizing when it wasn't gold. Then Tristan gets naked and starts taking a bath. Veronica starts wishing she never has to bathe again. Chapter 22 is also in the view of Veronica. They wake up early the next day to do running training, even though the combat practice is her favorite. Tristan training with the stable boy was supposed to be punishment, but he winds up having a blast. And the unfortunate news comes out that no phoenix eggs have been found for months. Veronica starts feeling betrayed and realizing the only reason Nick offered to sponsor her is because he knew deep down it was never going to happen. Veronica goes and hides in the stables to cry, and Tristan uses his animagic to communicate with Wynn to try and figure out where she is. Tristan told her, it's like, although eggs have not been found, I promise you, they will eventually, and I will sponsor you. Nick really starts opening up about how all they ever wanted in life was to be a phoenix writer. And Tristan's like, yeah, and all I ever wanted to do was to be a patrol leader. Nick, once again, during their back and forth, starts checking out Tristan, realizing that he's kind of hot. And then Tristan's dad walks in on them and starts scolding them for being in the stables chatting instead of training or doing any chores. Veronica starts to compare Cassian to her sister Val. Never pleased and always cranky. Tristan's not allowed to be as good as other people. He has to be way better and go completely above and beyond from them. Even with all the practice they've been doing, the dogs and the horses are still very spooked by the phoenixes. The chapter ends with Tristan getting ready to once again jump off the cliff and onto his phoenix's back, and everybody watches in anticipation because of how badly he screwed up the last time. Chapter 23 is about Tristan. While Rex is flying down, Tristan is trying to use his advice from Nick to overcome his fire phobia so he can jump onto his back. Like usual, the horses start panicking as the phoenix is flying down, but this time, the gate was left open. Tristan luckily was able to use his animagic to control and calm down all of the horses before they could all get out, and everybody was super proud of him. There's even a quote in the book that says, "Just as a plant naturally reaches towards the sun, animals instinctually sought out animages." Tristan got a little bump of confidence and he was able to jump onto his flaming phoenix's back with no hesitation. And he starts to thank Nick for his help, knowing that he's the reason that he's starting to succeed. Chapter 24, we're back to Veronica. Veronica's kind of staying up late, wondering how Tristan and his dad are doing. Tristan's not able to graduate to his new position yet because there's no eggs. While Tristan is starting to teach Nick archery, all Veronica can think of is how good he smells. They're trying to perfect her breath and her posture, but she keeps getting distracted because she can't stop checking out Tristan. But she tries to focus by thinking of Valkyra and how she was able to master archery and beat everybody in the competitions when she was only 11 years old. Tristan explains, he's like, every single one of the riders has their own strength. Fallon has the best balance. Ronan is the strongest. Tristan's is throwing spears and arrows. And Nick is the best animage that any of them have ever seen. Tristan asks Nick what they're doing for Azurok's Day, which is their version of summer solstice. She loves the fact that she's able to have a close relationship with someone because most of her life she's had nobody but cranky old Val. Tristan really talks about how his bond with Rex is so strong that no matter how far away each of them are from each other, they can feel one another. And Veronica really starts getting her heart broken thinking that's what she was going to have with Zephyra. Chapter 25, we're back to Tristan's point of view. Veronica is mesmerized by watching Rex fly. Tristan starts telling the story about how he got Rex, how his mom kept the egg safe for years so that way she could give it to her son. Veronica is shown the breeding cages, and it becomes extremely offended by seeing the beautiful animals locked up. And so far, only one egg has been laid because of how badly the females hate the males. Nick and Veronica really start to spend a lot of time with each other. And Tristan realizes that, other than his dad, Nick is the only one who's ever called him out on his arrogance. After Nick falls asleep, Tristan carries him to their bed. Chapter 26 is Veronica's point of view. When Veronica wakes up in her bed, she realizes that Tristan carried her back. She hates the breeding cages, because apparently even the most experienced phoenix riders don't know what a phoenix's mating habits are. Tristan starts doing his bow practice. He gets invited to hang out with friends, but instead he insists he keeps on practicing. Veronica gets really insecure that she's not doing enough for Tristan because Tristan is the one that's going to help her become a phoenix rider. But he says it's all good because he's the reason he's becoming a patrol leader. The chapter ends with Val making her appearance. Chapter 7, we're back to Sev's point of view. Sev feels like he's a slap across the face to his parents by working as a soldier, and he really needs to find some phoenix riders to side with. Trix is starting to make the poison, and she explains that it is going to take a while because the flowers need to be dried and crushed. They have to make sure that when it's administered, all of the soldiers are in one place. Sev steps in and says he's willing to put the poison in the soldiers' packs. The chapter really starts talking about the history of Avalkara, saying she was known as the queen who did not need a crown. Avalkara's mother was the queen who died during childbirth, and her half-sister Feronia's mother was a consort, who the king later decided to marry. The sisters were pitted against each other because the people didn't know which one of them was born first, and the king never declared either one of them to be an heir. Feronia, in her final days, lost her life to a stray arrow going into her chest, while she was roaming the palace trying to find her sister to make peace. Trix also starts to really open up about the phoenix that she owned, Bellatrix. She says during battle, her phoenix was beheaded right in front of her. Beheading is the only way to kill a phoenix so that it cannot be resurrected. And she also says that her name is not actually Trix, it's Alithia Shadowheart. Chapter 28, we're back to Veronica's point of view. Veronica started getting really bad flashbacks of Zephyra being poisoned the moment she saw Val. Val has been searching for her sister and immediately recognized her even with her boy disguise. And then Val is like, "You're not still mad at me for culling your animal, are you?" And Veronica snaps, she's like, "Culling? You murdered my bondmate." And she refuses to leave with Val because she can't forgive her, and she feels like for the first time in her life, she's with real friends. Tristan comes over while hearing all the commotions and asks Nick if he is okay. Later on, when Val finds out about the breeding cages and how they don't have female riders, she gets extremely offended. And she even explains, "You do not cage and breed a phoenix the same way you do not cage and breed a queen." She also warned Veronica, she's like, "You gotta get out of here. As you grow older, your boobs are gonna grow and they're gonna figure you out." Val tells Veronica that the riders are not her people. She's like, "You need to come back with me. I'm your sister and I have a really special gift for you." And Veronica refuses because she knows all Val wants is to be able to be in control. And as this is going on, Zephyra, who was brought back to life, flies up into the horizon. Chapter 29 is Veronica's point of view. Zephyra is now the size of a small pony, and Veronica is once again able to feel her bond. The guards freak out because they think it's a feral bird with no bondmate. Veronica tries to reach out and touch Zephyra, but the crowd panicking spooked her. The other phoenixes flew around her to protect her from the arrows that the guards were intending to shoot at her. Eventually, she's caught and she's put into the breeding cages. And the witnesses say that Nick really needs to be promoted because he was able to use that strong animagic to even tame that female phoenix. Zephyra is the third female in their breeding enclosure, and they have Nick working in the breeding enclosure with hopes that they can make Zephyra and Rex have babies. Chapter 30 is Veronica's point of view. Veronica starts to feel a lot of guilt over Zephyra's captivity, thinking that it's her fault because she was the one that encouraged Zephyra to stay instead of flying free. Veronica asks Val, she's like, "How is Zephyra back?" Turns out all of those PTSD flashbacks that she was having weren't flashbacks at all. It was her bondmate was alive and trying to communicate with her. They don't know that the bird is already bonded, and Veronica is keeping it on the down low, that way they don't discover that she's a girl. Val tries to pull Veronica in to comfort her, but of course Veronica shoves her back and is like, "No." And Veronica starts imagining a life where her and Tristan are riding their phoenixes together. The breeding enclosures were large and clean, still, they were cages. Zephyra lurches forward to be near Veronica when she sees her. Because even after everything that's happened in their time apart, their bond is still there, and their love for another is still strong. They put a cuff around Zephyra's ankle, so that way she can still get some exercise outside of her cage without flying away. And she hated being bound. Erkson, one of the keepers of the cages, explains that the reason why Zephyra is acting the way she is because she's looking for her bondmate. If phoenixes go too long without being able to find their riders, eventually they turn into ash. But on some occasion, they will search forever. Chapter 31 is the POV of Sev. The soldiers are secluded in the forest, and Sev thinks about how nobody will ever find their bodies. Cave finally admits to Sev that he always hated him, until he saw how he saved that anime girl. Sev and Cade were about to become intimate with each other. And then the roll call sounded. At first, Sev starts to feel really bad for the soldiers for what he's about to do to them because they're people, they have families. But then he realized that it's the Phoenix Riders who are the true heroes. They heard another whistle and they started freaking out, thinking that it was an attacking troop. Until both of the leaders greeted one another. It was too late, the poison was already planted in all of the food and drinks. There's no backing down from this now. The ill effects of the poison were going to be starting any moment. Once they started eating and getting really sick, they realized they're like, oh no, our food is poisoned, and they started blaming their servants. So the soldiers started grabbing servants and slitting their throats. Until finally, one of the soldiers realized it was Sev who did it to them all along. Grabs his arrow and he goes to shoot Sev, while muttering the words, traitor, until Cade kicks the soldier down, grabs the arrow, and then he points it at Sev himself. Chapter 32 is of Sev's point of view. Turns out he wasn't aiming the arrow at Sev, but was aiming it at an attacker that was right behind him. Cade gives Sev a bag of phoenix eggs that he was going to use to give to the riders, but he feels really doubtful that he's going to be able to make it to them. There are 12 eggs in the bag, and it is heavy. They get stopped by soldiers who ask who they are and where they're going. They say they're like, oh, we're just mage slaves. We're going upstream to look for some fresh water. They see Trix again, and she's bruised up really bad. And she's about to be beheaded the exact same way her phoenix was. And before her head's chopped off, she shouts, Avalkra Ashfire will live forever. And the chapter ends with Sev getting an arrow through his shoulder and then falling backwards off of a cliff. Her chapter 33 is Veronica's. Veronica has spent weeks away from Zephyra. She wants to bond with her more. She hates seeing her in the cage. She waits until nighttime to really focus on their bonding. Veronica starts to feel a quiver in her bond with Zephyra. She runs in to check on her and she sees that she got put into the mating cage with Rex. She instructs Zephyra. She says scream, thrash, refuse the mating. And seeing how hysterical Zephyra is acting, Tristan says that he can't do it. He's not gonna go through with the mating and he doesn't care if he gets demoted. It's morally wrong. His dad's just like, fine, bring another male bird. And Veronica and Zephyra both go hysterical once again. Veronica started doing a trick called mirroring with Tristan, a magic trick that riders normally only did with their phoenixes while riding. It takes years to master, but Veronica was able to do it almost instantly. Chapter 34 is Veronica's. Veronica woke up on a pallet in the servants' chamber, with Val watching over her. She fainted from the magic she was using before they can give her a medical exam. Val stopped him and said, nope, I'll take care of him. That way they don't examine her and realize she's a girl. Tristan comes in, glad that Nick is okay. And then the chapter ends with them seeing smoke in the distance, signaling that there's a raiding party nearby. Chapter 35 is Tristan's. You know what? Tristan actually doesn't mind being demoted. Actually, he enjoys it because he feels like he's finally free from his father's control. Because there was a raider camp in the distance, there were no lessons that day, and all the phoenixes had to remain grounded. That way, they could stay quiet and not be spotted. A horn was blown 3 times, signaling that there was an attack coming in. The situation became serious because Tristan's father, the commander, was going into battle for the first time since the Blood War. He told Tristan to be in charge, and he says, you know what, son? I'm actually proud of you. I'm proud of you for showing leadership skills and standing for what's right, even if it meant he was going to suffer personal consequences. That's when Sev comes in, with the arrow still in his shoulder. He's running in, warning everybody about the attack that's coming. They told him, they're like, yes, we see the smoke in the distance. We see that there's raiders attacking nearby villages. Sev corrects him, is like, no, these aren't raiders. These are soldiers by the Empire. Turns out Elliot was a spy for the Empire. He was sent into the Riders' camp to gain their trust, so that way he could give the Empire and the soldiers information about the new Phoenix Riders. Mora comes forward to check Sev and make sure he's not lying with her shadow magic. She asks him, she's like, are you a friend or are you a foe of the Phoenix Riders? He says he is a friend sent by Alithia Shadowheart. Chapter 36 is Veronica's. Veronica is able to recognize Sev as the boy who saved her from the cabin, and then she saved him from Val. And it was because of that moment he was there to warn the riders about the upcoming attack. And her heart stops because Alithia was the name of her grandmother. Sev hands over the bag of phoenix eggs and said that despite him being a soldier, he is an animate. Mora uses her shadow magic to read Sev's mind and make sure he's telling the truth. And he warns about 400 soldiers are coming. And everybody, from the phoenixes to the villagers, needs to be ready. Veronica sees Sparrow and Chip again, but they get lost in the crowd before she can get their attention. Tristan tells Veronica that she needs to be a runner, but she insists that she can be a bigger help. Val insists that while they are getting the defenses ready, her and her sister need to free the female birds and they need to get out of there. Veronica used to see her sister as fearless, but now she just sees her as a selfish coward. Apparently, Val knew about the soldiers approaching and didn't tell anyone because she just wanted Veronica out of there. Val explained to Veronica that resurrections are not for the faint of heart because they take a minimum of a full week to work. She was able to very slightly control Zephyra because they were related. The chapter ends with Val taking her knife and slicing the front of Veronica's tunic, exposing that she's been a girl the whole time. Chapter 37 is about Veronica. Tristan gets shocked because all the things he's been doing has been with a girl. Val insists we need to get out of here before the battle begins. Veronica refuses to believe that Val even cares about her, especially with the pain she caused after she killed her bondmate. Veronica insists that her home is with the Riders, not with Val. Tristan offers Veronica a bow, giving her the opportunity to fight beside him. Chapter 38 is Tristan's. Tristan's mind starts to really race as he realized Nick the entire time has been Veronica. The soldiers are marching in and he knows that the village is the first that is going to be attacked. Each soldier has a little piece of a battering ram that they all put together when they get to the top of the mountain. A barrage of arrows falls from the sky and onto the soldiers. The soldiers counter by releasing grappling hooks with fire-resistant resin covering the ropes into their towers. Veronica tried taking a knife and cutting at the rope, but it was of no use. And once she did finally cut one rope, 2 more would take its place. Veronica tells Tristan, go get Rex, I'm gonna go get Zephyra, we're gonna ride into battle together. It's like, I can't release the female phoenixes from their enclosures, they're not bonded, they're gonna be unpredictable. Chapter 39 is Veronica's. Soldiers break into the palace and it becomes littered with bodies. Veronica is terrified that she is gonna lose her bondmate again. The soldiers are stunned by the beauty and the elegance of the phoenix. Veronica instructed Zephyra to mimic Rex's flight pattern, while the unbonded females just kind of did their own thing. One of the female phoenixes goes and grabs the battering ram with her claws. Some shoots and lands in her chest, but ignites in flames immediately. But the one that shot at her wings caused her to come crashing down. And without a bondmate, she may never come back. The other female phoenix ignited herself in flames and started swooping down and grabbing the soldiers one by one. She would set them on fire and then she would drop them down as fireballs onto the other soldiers. And then they realized, they're like, hey, you know what? We're animages. We can literally get all of our animals to fight with us. They learned earlier from Veronica that they need to encourage, not force, their animals if they're going to get them to help them fight. And the battle scene gives Avatar vibes, where all the creatures put their differences aside to attack a common enemy. Messenger pigeons came and gouged out the eyes of soldiers. The falcons tore at their flesh. The cats came in and scratched and clawed. Even the dogs had their own violent barrage. Llamas and horses were there too to do the heavy lifting. Chapter 40 is Veronica's. The animals were helping, but they were also getting killed in big numbers. The phoenixes were really hesitant after seeing the first one's death. Rex winds up getting shot in the wing and he can no longer fly. And right now, Zephyra is too young and too small to be ridden, but she still nudges at Veronica to encourage her to try. Sparrow makes another appearance, coming to gift her with this phoenix saddle. Tristan then teaches Veronica how to saddle and mount her phoenix. Veronica's dreams of being a phoenix rider were finally coming true. And if she winds up dying in battle, she'll die knowing that she fulfilled her dream. And Zephyra would rather die in battle than in a cage. Zephyra was being a baddie. She was doing constant fire dives so that the soldiers couldn't get through the walls of flames. Unfortunately, though, the soldiers started to catch on to her pattern once the fatigue started to kick in. Wind, the horse, came in to save Tristan. Zephyra and the remaining phoenixes all let out greeting calls as a dozen more phoenixes arrived. The riders have officially returned. Chapter 41 is Veronica's. Soldiers scattered as they were being taken out by riders, including Tristan's dad. Sparrow breaks down because during the war, her bird Chirp has been killed. Veronica starts to feel guilty that she was the one that caused Chirp's death because she's the one that insisted the animals come and join them in battle. But then she explained to Sparrow that Chip fought in his own free will. He wasn't forced, and he deserves an honorable burial. They wrap him in a scarf and they get ready to give him a true warrior's pyre. When Val sees what they're doing, she just kind of scoffs and walks away. Sparrow breaks down because Chip was her only friend, and Veronica's like, well, I'm your friend. Veronica eventually does track down Val, and Val was like, what? I thought you hated me. Veronica knows deep down that she's not sure if she could ever really hate Val. And then Val sends Veronica into a dreamlight state that shows her who she really is. Chapter 42 is Veronica's. Veronica wakes up from her dreamlike state learning that Val, this entire time, has been a Valkyra. Mora hugs Veronica, making sure she's okay after the battle. And then she explains the reason why a Valkyra is here, because when done properly, a bonded rider and a phoenix can both be resurrected together through ashes. Val kept her secret safe from everybody because she didn't want anybody to know that she was living as a peasant. Apparently, Val was able to keep all of her memories from her past life, but Veronica wasn't. And while Sev is healing in bed, Veronica goes up to him and asks what her grandma was like. Chapter 43 is Sev's. Sev is healing in the infirmary where he's in a really bad mood because of all the pain he's in. He still stayed and helped the Phoenix Riders fight, despite his severe shoulder injury. He's actually considering taking one of the Phoenix eggs for himself. Captain Cassian comes in and praises Sev for all of his help. He says he doesn't want praise, but he wants to work for him, as a spy. Sev then gives the captain the satchel that has the 11 eggs in it, and he's very confused because earlier there was 12 eggs. Before, Sev didn't know which side he wanted to be on, but now he knows that he is meant to be with the Phoenix Riders. Chapter 44 is Veronica's. Veronica is woken up at daybreak by everybody doing repairs. Tristan asks, he's like, why didn't you tell us from the beginning that you were a girl? Captain Cassian praises Veronica for her idea to bring the animals in because that was the reason they were able to win their battle. Veronica then goes to tell her entire story about her bondmate, how she died, and how she disguised herself as a boy, so that way she could be accepted and allowed a new phoenix. Captain Cassian gives a suggestion that she should be continuing to disguise herself as a boy. She says, I've proven myself. You let me be a girl or I'm gone. Like, I am proof that women are strong. They put the slain female phoenix into the fire, hoping that she will resurrect despite having no bondmate. The chapter ends with Tristan gifting Veronica a saddle and offering to ride with him side by side from now on. Epilogue. The epilogue shows that it was Val who stole one of the eggs from that dozen. Hopefully, this one hatches for her. Alright, opinion time. I loved this book. Personally, I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I loved the strong female protagonism from both Valkyra and Veronica. I loved the subtle LGBTQ+ representation from Cade and Sev. And I love that it has a lot of really unpredictable twists and turns that keep you on the edge of your seat. And I especially love that it's about phoenixes. There are so many books with dragons and dragon riders. There's not enough with phoenixes, but after reading this, I want more phoenix books. I have one issue with this book though. I believe the battle scene with the soldiers was way too subtle and a bit anticlimactic. Like, the scene itself was beautifully written, especially when the animals came in. Gave me the feelings of I was watching a James Cameron's Avatar when all of the animals combined with Awa to go and fight the sky people. However, in this book, that battle scene was only a couple of chapters. The fight was so action-packed, so well written, so immersive, but it was too short. The author is so talented at writing action scenes. All I ask is make them longer so I could spend more time immersed in that talent. Let me know what you think of Nikki's book, Crown of Feathers, and what book you would like for me to summarize for my future content.